In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Real Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Edwards. Joining us today, folks, is an entrepreneur, investor, former national champion athlete. Please welcome Maurice Clarett. Maurice, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a wonderful sunny day here in Ohio. Can't complain.
You really can't these days. Now, Maurice,
No.
I want to make sure we mention this too. Maurice, you're an author, and I'm currently reading the book One and Done. It's an inspirational tale, and we decided to kind of name this episode The Story of Commitment. Now, you're launching this new entrepreneur profile, this business, this brand called Commit 13. And before we talk about commitment, before we talk about why you're so committed nowadays, let's start with number 13. What's the reason behind number 13 of why you wore that number at the Ohio State University?
Well, we'll start off by saying it isn't a glorious tale. It's entertaining, right? So one day I thought it was a bright idea to go ahead and break into one of my neighbor's houses, right? So he had when it first came out, this was like 96 or 7 when PlayStation just came out. This was like PlayStation 1. And me and another neighborhood friend, we went down and we broke in the guy's house. And as we were breaking in the house, there was the game console was upstairs. So we go upstairs, we're unhooking the console. And in the process of doing so, one of the residents were in the house and he had woke up. And as he wakes up, obviously he panics. He comes into the room. He sees us. He sees my buddy. He runs down the hallway and eventually runs down the stairs and locked himself in the room. And I was my adrenaline was rushing so much, I had ran and basically jumped out of the window. And as I jumped out the window, you can't see it because my hair is kind of thicker right now. I hit my head on the window and eventually like slid down the side of the house. And then I jumped over the fence that was in the backyard and bumped my head again when I fell to the ground. But later on that night, I ended up going to the hospital because my head was like a gash, like it was like probably like the size of almost like my pointer finger, and it was a thick gash, and they put 13 staples in the top of my head. But what came from that, it was like a culmination of moments. What came from that is that I went to a juvenile detention center, and when I was at the detention center, there was a correctional officer by the name of Mr. Roland Smith, and Mr. Smith had actually pushed me to say, hey, this was my third time getting incarcerated as a kid. And he was telling me that, I've seen you play sports and basketball, football, and run track, and you can do something with yourself if you take it serious. And so the first year that I went to high school, and basically what happened was they put me on house arrest, and he was allowed to like mentor me and sort of like guide me instead of sending me to the state institution for juveniles. And I went and played my first year of high school, and I kind of took whatever number they gave to me, which was number 1. And my second year, I didn't take it too serious. Well, I took it serious, but I was just doing it and going through the motions, still having success. But my third year, I remember sitting in my mother's house, and I kind of thought to myself, was like, how do you want to redefine yourself? And I'm pretty sure that's what anybody, whoever, like if you make like significant and accelerated jumps in anything, I think there's like a conversation where like that period of your life has to have like a deeper meaning. And I remember like what kind of brought me to football and what I wanted my training to look like and what I wanted like just that period of my time to look like. And I said, hey, man, I'm going to represent it differently, everything from my number to just how I do everything. And I picked number 13 because had I not got in trouble or had I not bumped my head and essentially like, it's kind of like not philosophical. I don't have the word for it, but I literally bumped my head and got turned into a new direction. And that's why I picked number 13. And that kind of like redefined just my approach towards everything I was doing in regards to sports at that time.
Now, it's definitely a sign of change and a turning point kind of in your young adolescence. Did you kind of feel like football would be a way out for you? And now in the book, you kind of label each chapter about just one word that kind of defined who you were. I'm a Raider. I'm a Buckeye. I'm a starter. Mm-hmm. Did you feel that you had to become a football player and that football defined you?
No, football was just more or less something that we did. It just wasn't, to think that, let me put it in context. I'm 37 now, so you have to take like late 90s, early parts of 2000s. It wasn't as normal for a kid to say, "Hey, I'm going to the NFL." It was like the NFL was college. If you say you went to a real college, like that was like your version of the NFL. They weren't giving exorbitant amounts or an exorbitant amount of money to players individually. Like you had some quarterbacks who made a bunch of money, and obviously basketball players did, but it wasn't like football was going to be the end all be all of everything. And so what ended up happening was that we played because we had fun. We played because it was competitive and it was a place to sort of like show your machoism. Back when we played, like the cool kid who played football got the girls. You know what I'm saying? So it
Sure.
was more of like a social status and having fun and sort of like showing your machoism. Like guys would go in high school and spar inside of boxing gyms just to say like who was tough. That was like the social currency. You know what I'm saying? So I never thought that it would be a thing, but I quickly seen that if I took it serious, that I can get outside of my neighborhood. So initially, it was like get outside of the neighborhood, and in context, Youngstown, Ohio, was a violent place. You know, what I mean, if you historically look, what they got Google now, per capita, we have ranked in the top 10 for murders all throughout the 90s. You know what I'm saying? So you're just talking about a violent place, a place that you wouldn't probably. Think was an ideal space to raise your kids in at that time. And if you had the resources to get out, you would get out. And so football was just that vehicle to get out, but it wasn't like I didn't think at that time that I would go out and make a ton of money and eventually become this world famous rich guy when I initially started to play the game.
But you always consider yourself to be great. I mean, you always consider yourself to be better than your
Mhm.
competitors. Where did that come from? Where did that toughness come from and that sense of belief come from?
I think you get it from your neighborhood, or I think I got it from my neighborhood. I can only speak to myself. Our neighborhood probably had 30 or 40 boys within 3 or 4 years of each other. And whether you're playing in the backyard, playing basketball, whether you're running from light pole to light pole, doing feet or a foot race, it doesn't matter if you was playing football in the wintertime when you're getting tackled on the sidelines. It didn't matter if you were slap boxing. It didn't matter if you were wrestling. It didn't matter if me and my brother were playing football in our living room on our knees and we're slamming each other around. You just grow up in this competitive environment, and even when you have um, just this tenseness and intensity through the city from so much violence, it just adds an edge or a chip on your shoulder when you're doing everything. And so I think a lot of that stuff, it makes you transform into a character. And so as you start to compete against people and beat people and gain confidence, and you're the youngest guy competing against these guys, you just start to feel that you have the ability to tap into a mentality that they don't, right? And I think that kind of transformed and followed me when I finally got my feet together or my feet up under me in high school. And then even when I went to Ohio State, I just, anything, even if you're great in business, I mean, just think about this. You can kind of parallel this to business. When I was in Ohio State, when I was in 11th grade, it was clear. I said I didn't want to be the best in the city. I didn't want to be the best in the state. I wanted to be the best in the country, right? There wasn't even like a mentality to like be average. I just said that's kind of like what I'm signing up for, right? But you can parallel to that to somebody said, hey, I don't want to make just another burger stand. I want to make McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to make a medical device company. I want to make Stryker, or something that's very prominent or dominant within the space. And the same thing when I went to Ohio State. I just told guys, hey, I plan on starting. And I was serious and I meant what I said and I was willing to do the work. And that's what I signed up for. But I think even life is better that way when you're clean and clear on what you want. Like when you're clear on this is the space that I want to occupy. And even though I may not know how to do what it is that I'm pursuing, I'm down to at least put the work in to think or to get to the space to think a lot or to think that or how can I navigate through the space and also the physical work that it takes to build something special. And I think that if you can just put those two ingredients in any business, you have at least you have a shot. At least you have a shot. And if you show up consistently and say, "Hey, I want to figure something out intellectually, and I'm down to physically get up and put in the work to build whatever it is that I'm doing," I think that you have a shot to be great in business in some regard.
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely a leader I would love to follow, right? Someone who knows where they want to go, someone who wants to be the greatest, who wants the greatest, not just for themselves, but for the whole. What were some of the things that football taught you, but also what were some of the things that after you were done with football, do you kind of realize, I can live another life. I can be great at something other than running a football.
Good question. The first one that football taught me, I think, just it taught me what you get, or what you will receive from um, applying consistent effort to something. What I mean is that showing up to practice every day, showing up to a weight room every day, showing up to film study every day, being diligent in your preparation, being diligent in your note taking, being specific in your route running, your blocking schemes, and all of the nuances. Whatever you put in or whatever you insert inside the game, you'll get all of that stuff out, and you can transfer that into business. The guy who doesn't study in business, he just doesn't develop a sixth sense. The guy who just doesn't learn from others doesn't develop a sixth sense. And those are things that you basically can pick up from football and apply basically to business. Football is very task oriented and very goal driven. Some days in business, you can take a day off, and nobody feels it. In sports, you can't take a day off because somebody can knock you upside your head and things of that nature. And so you have to really be sharp every day. And especially if you're trying to be great. If you just want to be one of the guys in the crowd, like, hell, go be one of the guys in the crowd. But to the guys who are really trying to pursue something and really trying to dominate their space, those guys are searching for something different on a daily basis at practice and in the film study. And you can kind of see it. Look at some of the greatest guys who've played any sport. They'll tell you more was done in preparation. That's why Tim Grover has the book when he talks about Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. The whole book is all about preparation and their approach to everything. And I could just say that's what football has taught me. Now, what was the second part of that question? I forgot it.
Well, I was just saying, after you left football, and just to give our audience some context, after you left or you were dismissed, I guess, from the University of Ohio State, or you just dropped football in general, how did you redefine greatness? I guess is a better question. And are you still trying to
redefine greatness? No, I have no interest in trying to pursue anything athletically. No, the best how I redefine greatness is no matter what you're interested in, just having the ability to do it to the best of your ability, right? And like football was just a thing, and I didn't realize that I had a skill set of basically being diligent, being a hard worker, um, being consistent, and I didn't realize how all that stuff can kind of transfer to any platform. And how I define greatness, I don't know how to I don't know how to define it in a broad sense, but in regards to what I'm doing is just, do you have the ability to pursue and do the best job that you can possibly do with the skill sets that you have, and also within that same vein, do you have the ability to delegate some responsibilities to other people? Do you have the ability to hire somebody that may do a better job in your business than you may do? That's a part of it. Do you have the ability to do that and pursue that? Greatness. Are you doing something that you enjoy? What I mean? Are you doing something that's meaningful? You'll find out. Or I don't know your whole backstory, but everybody, if you're a CEO of any sort on this call, or you listen to this later on, after you get money, you take care of your basic needs, and your basic comforts may be taken care of through cash flow from rental properties or from dividend income or whatever it may be. You may have properties paid off. I think everybody ultimately wants to get to a space that they're doing meaningful work. You know what I mean? And I think when you talk about greatness or you hear greatness, I think that everybody has to attach themselves to meaningful work. I don't think that once you become um, um, I don't want to say financially secure, and the people who you lead become well-to-do.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that you get fulfilled if you're not doing something meaningful, or that the work that you're doing connects to something more meaningful than yourself. I think it has to lead to something else that's meaningful work. I think that's why we see a large group of people who spend the first part of their life, accumulating resources. The back part of their life is basically giving it away and doing good with it. And I think that like when you talk about greatness, now I don't know how those worlds connect, but all of what you just said kind of lives in that space with me, and I'm pretty sure that there's enough smart people on this podcast that they can understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can find meaning in your work is going to be more productive. Your bottom
Mhm.
line will definitely grow. There's no doubt about it. And that's what we like to talk about here. We like to talk about how you incorporate the social or environmental mission within your organization to attract those employees, to make them more productive, and to make the world a better place. What I find so special and unique about your story, Maurice, is that you you come from nothing. Like you literally came from nothing and then went to like cover of ESPN magazine, back to nothing. Could you just bring our audience first to kind of into your life and kind of what I'm talking about, those experiences, and then I'd like to ask you 4 more questions about how you meaning it.
Yeah, so just to give a brief summary for those who may not know me, I come from Youngstown, Ohio. Kind of worked my way up through just a regular kid playing ball to being labeled as the best guy in the country as a high school football player. I went to Ohio State, and I went from being the best player in high school to winning a national championship 13 months later as a college kid, and then through some stuff was inflicted personally, and some stuff was inflicted externally. I got suspended from school in a nutshell, and after I got suspended from school, I eventually got drafted 2 years later, and I was a bust when I went to Denver to the Denver Broncos. Excuse me. And after the Broncos, to make a long story short, I went to prison. And after I went to prison, and I'll just kind of bounce around with a couple of stories that I think are relevant or I think that are valuable to people, and then I'll kind of get back to your question. But I went to prison, and I love to say it. Reading when I went to prison, reading kind of saved my life, and that's like the ultimate cornerstone of everything. When I went to prison, I was able to read words and able to have conversation and entertain and become a football player that did interviews about who we played or who we had in the upcoming weeks. But I didn't really see myself outside of that athletic environment. And so when I went to prison, one of the first, and so just to give context, my first 7 months was locked down for 23 hours out the day. And so that gave me the opportunity just to kind of sit with myself and think and just gather thoughts and deal with some stuff that may be on my mind that I was avoiding either through drinking, drugging, or doing whatever. But just through getting fan mail and just sitting for 23 hours of the day, I came across a book that I think was like instrumental in my change. It was called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure if you've been in business before, anybody who's ever been in business has always heard the book. And it really was instrumental because it taught me that everything that we speak, everything that we consume through our eyes, the music we listen to, the people we talk to, all that stuff eventually manifests into something, right? They're just thoughts don't come through your mind, and words don't come out your mouth without creating some sort of behavior. And what it helped me to do was that it helped me to understand how I got to where I was at. In my mind, I was this gangster who plays sports. And
Hmm.
so I behaved like a gangster. I thought like a gangster. So I got the consequences of a gangster. But it also got me excited because I also said that, hey, if I was able to have some level of power and control of creating this, then I can also have some level of power and control in creating a different life for myself if I acquire the knowledge and the skills and the wherewithal inside of something else. And so eventually I was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. Hold on. I was
Yeah.
sentenced to 7.5 years in prison, and I went to Toledo, Ohio, and that was the first time that I basically started reading. So we were locked down for 20 hours out the day, and they had this catalog called Bargain Books, and I'm forever grateful for Bargain Books. And you can order books for like two, three, $4 or $5.
Hmm.
And I treated football the same way that I treated business. And I said, okay, I'll be too old to get out and play football. I would be 30 by the time I got out, up under the sentence that they gave me. And I said, I need to go ahead and wrap my mind around doing something in business. And so I remember when I was sitting down, I was saying to myself, I said, man, who are some of the most successful people? Because when you're playing football, you look for some of the most successful people in your sport. And so I said, okay, at that time, Bill Gates was like Mr. Everything. He was the richest guy in the world, and it was Warren Buffett. And so I wasn't interested in tech, or tech didn't connect with me in software with Microsoft. And I really didn't see a whole lot of literature on him, but I saw a ton of literature on Warren Buffett and basically being an investor. So I said, hey, man, let me pick up his books and let me just figure out how this man made a gargantuan amount of money and became who he was. And so I picked up any book, The Warren Buffett Way, or any other book, Snowball, that basically spoke to Warren Buffett at that point in his life. Then I started picking up books upon spirituality, a series of books by Dr. David Hawkins. He's out there in Sedona, Arizona. And he had Truth versus Falsehood, Transcending Levels of Consciousness, Power versus Force. And he had a series of books that helped me to become more spiritually and consciously awakened, and just being more aware of life. And if you ever read his material, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. It's a lot of metaphysical stuff, but essentially it's books upon consciousness and what's real and what's fake, right?
Mm.
So then I got into Andrew Carnegie and Napoleon Hill, and really just started to look at and to read from people who had basically started America. Just basically how Andrew Carnegie came over here and revolutionized the steel industry, and how J.P. Morgan was basically J.P. Morgan Chase, which we know now was basically his accountant back when they were a lot younger. He's deceased now, but these are the things that I was reading from. I was reading from titans and basically people who had built America. And it got to a point where I didn't even understand I was in prison anymore because my mind had basically escaped and went somewhere else. It's no different than if a person was at a university and they got so immersed in their work and so immersed in growing that it wouldn't matter if he was at Ohio State, USC, Oklahoma, Utah, or whatever. You would just be so immersed into who the information was basically transforming you into. And that's basically what happened to me. And essentially, I got out after 4 years, but my mind and my mentality had exploded far greater than I'm pretty sure anybody had ever imagined. But to me, it made sense because I had experience in football that anything you sort of focused on and put your energy into and become obsessive about, you can have success in. And so I just did the same thing in regards to reading from business and spirituality, reading The Economist on a weekly basis, and Entrepreneur, and Incorporated, and Fast Company, and the Wall Street Journal, and New York Times, and USA Today. And these will become like just part of like what I did on a daily basis. And it just made me a different individual, made me more thoughtful, made me more empathetic. I guess I say makes you more conscious of how your behavior connects to the world. Makes you a little bit more, I don't know, just makes you a more well-rounded person. And I think that, I'm experiencing 10 years later, things that I wanted to do when I initially got out. I think I went through a decade of sort of like reintroducing myself to the world, just kind of showing like who I am. Before they knew me from playing sports and they knew me from criminal activity. But I think over the past decade, I've been able to show just growth in general, in a level of maturity that's basically kind of stuck with me. And I've been able to like have great business partners and, be able to do a bunch of cool things socially in regards to the business world that I think it all stems and started from there. Now I lost your question somewhere, but I thought that
No,
there's
no,
a lot of
no.
people who may not know me on your platform.
There wasn't any question. It was just to have you explain and bring our audience in of where you come from and how you got to this point. And there are a few things in there, Maurice, that I picked up, and one was spirituality through reading those books.
Mm-hmm.
One was business, and then one you didn't really say, but you kind of talked about your partners, family, relationships.
Mm-hmm.
How does your purpose? What is your purpose, and how does your purpose create an alignment for all of those things that you can hit on all three and do it all at once to create this meaningful life?
I say this all the time too, and this is actually a good question. Um, I think we have purposes. So I'll say this and then I'll talk about my purpose.
Yeah.
I think your purpose evolves as you meet new people and as you learn and as you become more educated. Because I can, because if you'd asked me something 10 years ago, I would have said something totally different. And I'll say that. But I think that my purpose is to continue to just be responsible with whatever platform that I have in whatever industry that I'm in. And part of that is, I'm in medical space. I'm in a social service space. I'm in a real estate space, and just being able to, serve, either give great housing in the medical space that we're in, either give great medical care and have a great facility that these people can walk into, have a great experience when it comes to the surgical stuff that we do. Just for these people to have a great experience and just deliver the highest part of ourselves and our business to people. But I don't have like this dying purpose. I feel like this is just my just my like this is what I think God made me for. He made me in His image to do just this one thing. I think it's just all about being responsible with whatever platforms we've been given, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I've answered it correctly, but that's how I feel when you ask the question.
There's no correct answer, but it seems like you're serving everyone in every facet that you do, and that service is going to continue, and you're going to continue to hold yourself responsible. And that's probably the most difficult thing, right? Like committing and staying disciplined to serving, staying disciplined to your business, staying disciplined to do this day out. How does one take ownership? How does one stay disciplined? What have you learned through this process from coming out of prison to now being an entrepreneur, an investor, and someone who is inspiring other people?
Yeah, I think in this part may be simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. I think every individual needs a simple routine that grounds them or primes them for the day. And I don't think that, and I don't know how many people will listen to this, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people in business, they don't give time to themselves. They give it to everybody else. They get up and they become a slave to their phone, a slave to emails, a slave to the responsibilities. But one way that I equip myself for everything is that, I wake up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning every day. Not hard, but simple, right? And I sit down and grab my cup of coffee, same cup of coffee every day. I sit at the table and I do a combination of drinking coffee, writing my goals down, and also meditating. And the writing of the goals, that goes with developing and being clear on intention and where you're choosing to spend your energy or where you're choosing to do your focus. I go through meetings in my head. So in my head, I've already spoken this podcast earlier. Like I think about how it is that I want to present myself. I think about the energy I want to come to places. Even at the beginning of our podcast, me smiling on purpose was me letting you know that I come in peace and I'm easygoing and I want to make this like a great experience and I want this thing to be fruitful for both of us. It wasn't accidental. I just wasn't smiling for casual purposes. You know what I mean? And even if there's something that I'm focusing on, and there may be a sense of doubt in the air somewhere, excuse me, I'll become curious as to why am I doubting that, or I'll concentrate on the feelings that I have from that, and I'll consciously erase them, and I'll try to harness up something else. So I'm making sure I'm feeling good about whatever it is that I'm thinking about, and I'll go through that. And it's a simple practice. It's something everybody can do, but people don't want to get their asses up. People want to lay in the bed. People want to roll over. People want an extra 15 minutes. And they don't want to spend time with themselves. And they think like, hey, well, I'll just get that time in rolling in my car. Well, no, it's not rolling in your car or rolling in your plane or rolling wherever you're rolling to. Get your ass up, take some time for yourself, sit down, focus on what you're focusing on, being clear on what you want to do. And so from there, once I got my mind together, once I got my head together, I go to the gym. And I have a gym in one of my garages over here. So I go in there and I'm constantly, focusing on the amount of effort I'm giving towards that 60 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever it is, to basically make sure that I'm exerting energy. I'm making sure my endorphins are up. I'm making sure that everything about me is just like, I'm just in a great mood. I only listen to good music. That's why I told you about classical music. I literally will turn on classical music if I'm not doing nothing, just to kind of set the mood. Like I only listen to stuff that's energetic, stuff that's positive, stuff that's talking about hustling and grinding and moving and going forward. And that's like what ends up becoming part of my universe. And then from that, then I go to the world, right? And then I go meet people, and then I talk to people, and then, I'm pushing emails out, and I'm pushing text messages out, and I'm happy and I'm enthusiastic, and the people who want to talk to me, the people who want to be around me, they want to be around that energy, or they want to do business with me because like that's the mood or the energy that I'm giving off to other people. And so to me, it's fairly simple how it happens. But if you ask somebody to stay with you for about 6 or 7 months of doing the same routine, they won't do it.
Right.
And it's not to say it's the only thing to do, but it's just my thing I do. And that's, I think, how I get results.
It's so true, right? Simple, not easy. You know,
Simple
and
but easy.
now what is your message? What is your message to the people that gravitate toward you because of this energy? How do you help them sustain their habits?
What is my message to them? I don't have one preachy message. You know what I mean? I think if anything, if they said what was my message without being vocal, what would be
Mm,
um, to be in a space of doing meaningful work, to do right by the people that we're doing service to or service with, to do right by the people who we employ, um, to always be fair, to always tell the truth amongst each other. Even if we catching the short end of the stick, sometimes to be honest with ourselves. Like if we messed up and we just did something that just wasn't right. Hey, we fucked up. That's what happens. You know what I'm saying? So I think more of my teammates are the people who I do business with, my partners. Those are the things that I think that they know that I kind of like are those mantras are ways of doing business. Those are the things that I live. That's how I live. You know what I mean? I think that
mm.
I don't say it, but I think we learn a lot from each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not trying to be something, you're just being it. This is who you are now. And how do you hold yourself accountable for the day in, the day out, the hard times? Let's be honest, like you've got to be facing those days where
Mhm.
you may hit a rock bottom, and even though you're exercising, even though you're doing the right thing, even though you're reading, scripture, even though you're reading your favorite book, you're still going to hit that rock bottom. What do you do when those moments come?
I think a large part of that is just the team you have. You know what I mean? Because I mean that's normal. You're not going to feel 100% every day, nor will you feel like executing every day, and you go through slumps and stumps. But it's really the people you surround yourself with. You know what I mean? But I just have people who just are like they have good days. They're good to be around. They're good to socialize with. They're good to crack jokes with. Um, people that you can be honest with. Like I'll tell my partners, hey man, I'm not feeling up to my best today, or the last 2 days of meetings drain me, and I don't feel like being like Mr. Positive and Mr. Everything Maurice, right?
Mm,
Getting over stuff where you have a deal in the palm of your hands and it's just taking a little bit slower to close. You know what I'm saying? And you become obsessive compulsive about something closing, and you're not looking at everything else, the totality of your life. You just seem to be focused on that. That doesn't give you the best attitude at all times. And so a large part of that is just the people we around, man. But these guys live similar lives. I got a one partner, he gets up every day at 3:30. He beats me to the punch. I get up about
mm.
4:35. My other one guy, he's about 4:35. And we have another partner on the West Coast, excuse me. And so he gets up a little bit later. But it's a combination of people, right? People think they can do everything themselves. Like life was supposed to be lived with people. You know what I mean? You were supposed to have partners. You were supposed to have people you socialize with. You were supposed to have people that you made money with and shared resources with, and share with how you've done what you've done. And I don't say that. I think that's how I stay out of those darker spaces more than other people. People who typically have that are like people who typically are in like dark and selfish places are like small-minded people who want to do everything by themselves. Like
Mm.
you may have it might be 15,000 people on here, but like you can be a CEO and be small-minded and think everything is about you, and think that just about you making money, or you getting a Rolls Royce, or like a new car, and you like going to the country club to like shit on your friends or something like that. But like those are like small-minded people who typically have like those personal issues, like people with like low self-esteem. You know what
Mm.
I mean? Like those are the guys that I'm talking about. But like and I tell you this, I start off the day being thankful, bro. What I'm saying? I'm thankful, I'm grateful. Um, and I think when you start off there, you don't really. It's easy to get out of stuff. You know what I mean? Like I can tell you this, um, when you reflect a lot and you are thankful a lot, you just think of somebody else who has like a horrible situation. I still keep in communication with guys who are incarcerated for life in prison. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So, like, what am I really complaining about? Like, a deal's not getting done fast. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? Like,
No.
it's not that serious. We do work in low income environments. You know what I'm saying? Like we're helping to provide relief for people who can't afford rent. I'm helping to feed football teams where their football programs can't afford the meals for 2 days. You know what I'm saying? All of the work that I do in some capacity now, some of our medical work, excuse me, the majority of our medical work is either in rural areas or impoverished areas inside of inner cities. And so we deal with people who are far less fortunate. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't get caught up into that, and I don't have moments. The only moments I have where I feel bad is that, and I'm pretty sure everybody can identify with this, is that you get so married to the work that you do that oftentimes you don't see your family as much as you would like to,
Mm.
and that's probably the bigger thing. If you had a bigger conversation and everybody stripped down and they said like what is like one thing that hurts you more than anything, is that it takes so much time to get something going and so much stuff to be doing in business that when you finally get momentum, you don't want it to go, but you're doing so much with the business that and it doesn't matter how much good work you're doing, you still want your time spent with and around your family because you know that's who you actually that's your pride, that's your tribe, that's you, you know, that's your lifeline, they've helped you to get to this point. You know what I'm saying? And so oftentimes the business steals that from them, and those are harder things. But you know, I don't get into too many dark spaces where um, that just become insurmountable. The family thing, the family thing is the biggest dynamic. If you want to have a guest on here to talk about something, you know, go get 3 or 4 people who can seriously talk about their massive success with their companies and making millions of dollars and all that stuff, and then just talk about the Achilles heel that people talk about, whether when you're playing golf or in a car or on conference calls, and it's, hey man, we don't even see our families because we're so entrenched into doing the work. And I don't care how much work you do, nothing compares to balancing it out and making sure that you're spending time with your family and people who've helped you actually get to the point where you're at.
And that's the craziest part about this all. It's like, I can't tell you how many CEOs have been on this podcast that go, you know, I was running Anheuser-Busch, you know, I was running Burt's Bees, I was running whatever, 7th generation CEOs of the company. And my wife and kids didn't even know me. You know, I had a spear in the heart moment, you know, things like that. And so when it comes to like pain and it comes to these exterior forces that can totally wipe us out, even though we have achieved all this artificial, let's say, or not artificial, but let's say success as society defines it.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's equal? Like when you were in, and that's an odd question, right? Like when you were in jail, you had your own experiences, yet you said that you were trapped and the jail was really in your mind. When you grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, your father wasn't with you. He was in the area, but he wasn't really with you. Your house was getting shot up. You all these different things. But now you look at your own family. Do you see any comparisons? And is that stress, is that internal battle, is it the equal for everybody, regardless of your
I don't know.
circumstances?
Regardless of your circumstances, so funny that you say that because I was talking to a pastor friend yesterday, and I talked to him to kind of like level myself out at times because he's seen me, right? And I said, man, I feel in some capacity, I still feel like I'm in prison now, and I feel detached from my family some days, right? And what I'm really referring to is that you can become so locked into what you're doing that the same way that my daughter didn't see me when I was in prison is sort of like it's been similar over the last decade while I've been out building business,
Sure.
where you pop in and you become a visitor and you become say, hey, hello, how's everything going on? Let me come to your games, but you're not present because you're thinking about business. You're on a phone call. You're in the car on a phone call, and you don't get that. But the flip side of that is that you say, hey, this is what affords us to go to the school. You know, so it's like the double-edged sword. And so, to your point, there's some pain that's going to happen. And I think everybody justifies and has said, hey, if some pain has to be experienced, why don't we improve our lives? You know what I'm saying? But I think that that takes a level of consideration from the wife. It takes a level of consideration, understanding from the kids. But the kids are often too young and they don't understand daddy's building a business or
Mm.
mommy's building a business or you're just away from the home because they're peers. You know, when you're talking about CEOs of Anheuser-Busch or whatever company that you bring on here, you're talking about a fucking high achievers. People who are A-type personalities, people who have dedicated years to get their shot. People who have dedicated years, like they're professional athletes within their own sports, right? And so, hey, nobody wants to give that up. And then don't minimize this. There's a bunch of ego that's involved too. Once you start accomplishing and once you start motoring through your career and once you start moving forward, there's a bit of that makes you feel fulfilled because you're moving forward.
Mm,
And there's no such thing as balance, and that's the harsh reality because oftentimes the wives they receive the benefits because a lot of husbands end up, let me buy my wife a car, a house, and let me buy these things to substitute me being there. And I forget where I was going at this point, but I'm pretty sure everybody understands what I'm talking about. There becomes like this. It becomes this thing like, hey, let me try to show you what you mean to me by physically giving you a thing, right?
sure.
Or taking you on a vacation, or buying you the new, Mercedes or Rolls or a sports car, make you feel good. Um, but nothing can replace time. Nothing can replace you being around somebody, and then you suffer because but then when you're around a lot, you suffer because you say, man, I could have been doing this, I could have been doing that. You end up thinking about the business all day, and
Mm,
it becomes a thing. But then I take it a step further. I ask myself,
sure.
is that a first generation thing? Because if wealth has been established in your family, or if finances have been established in your legacy, does the next generation think about that, or do they become consumed with trying to establish a foundation that the rest of the family sits on? And I ask myself that at the time, say, hey, are you the sacrificial lamb for what your family's legacy could be? And like, is it worth it? And oftentimes I say yes, because with the world that we live in the society that we live in, having resources matter. You need to have resources. And I always say you shouldn't have your kids. Your kids should struggle. Your kids should work, but they shouldn't have the same fight that you have. They shouldn't have the exact same fight that you have. Even make it tough, make it hard, go to school, work your way through somebody's company, learn business, learn industry, learn business from your dad, your mother, learn business from other people. But I just don't think that I would want my kid to have the same fight that I had. I don't know. I said a lot, but hopefully everybody got
Mm,
what I was saying.
right. And I think where you also were going is like the idea of commitment and the sacrifice that takes. And can you pick and choose that sacrifice? And if you are sacrificing something every day, you're going to have some fear. What I find so fascinating and inspirational about you is that there's no courage without fear. And certainly you've overcome many obstacles in your head because you have such a strong mindset nowadays. How do you approach fear when a new obstacle gets in your way?
Very easy. I've lost everything. I've experienced how it feels to lose everything. So I don't
Mhm.
like, other people have this fictitious belief on what will something feels like if they fail or if they lose everything or if something goes bad. I've experienced it. I've lost the best career that I've had in my life, or at that point, the NFL. I lost all my money. I lost literally everything. And so I know what the story feels like when they say what else could happen. Like I've lived that. I went to prison. That's probably some people outside of death. Prison is probably like the biggest fear for people. So I just don't think that there's anything that I will encounter will bother me. I think also one thing that helps me that sounds a little bit weird. I don't worry about or care about dying. So
Mm,
like everything short of dying, like I don't it just doesn't, I don't want to die earlier than what I'm supposed to, or that. But I think once you go to the lowest of the lows and you've been to like just the depths of like your mentality and in regards to like how you feel about yourself and having low self-esteem and all that shit. And once you just start to think about things that you don't want to think about, it's easier to become like comfortable with fear or
mm.
things that make you feel indifferent. And that's kind of like how my life has been up to this point.
Is that like you're saying, like when you get to the lowest of the lows, like it almost like unlocks freedom for you? Like you just don't
Yeah.
care about what people think about you. You don't care about whatever else is important. You just care about your purpose and what you are going to do day in, day out. Like you just, is that a fair
That's
like assumption?
that is the core of my basically rebirth. That's the core of how I've gotten where I'm at. That's the core of how I was able to go sell T-shirts outside of the stadium that I ran touchdowns in when I got out of prison. That's the
Mm,
core of how I was able to go sell books at festivals. That was the core of how I was out here doing speeches for $200. I didn't care.
mm,
Like I was free from, like I was free. What I'm saying? Losing everything helped me to be free. I don't like a person's opinion just doesn't matter because like in the big scheme of things, like nobody's opinion really matters. Like who are you? Like for me to care about what you think about me. And that's not to minimize somebody as a person, but it's not to say that you're not that important to where I'm trying to impress you. I care about your opinion that much. Like we don't value the same things. Like the way I look at
mm,
my life and the way I value my life isn't based upon what I have. I
mm.
really think that like that's it. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you in a $5 Costco shirt and some $15 Costco pants. And I bought probably 25 pairs of these $15 Costco pants and about 30 packs of these shirts, right? And I wear the same thing every single
Right.
day. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't like, if I have to put on a suit and be presentable somewhere, but it's kind of like everything kind of sings to my life. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
If you see me with something nicer, I'd be like, oh, he really liked that, but it doesn't make me. You know what I'm saying? Like where I
mm,
live doesn't make me. With golf club, I don't even go to the golf club or country club. It doesn't make me. Now I don't sit in first class to say, hey, excuse me, I'm better than you. I just like because they have larger seats. You know what I'm saying? I finally, like, one day, hopefully I'll get to the point where I can fly a private plane because there's some places that I would just like to go on an immediate basis. It's not because I think that I'm cooler than you. And so you just start to live different, saying we stop caring about what people think and life just takes on different meaning. But I just like, I don't care. So I feel free. Oftentimes, and I respectfully say sometimes I curse, but that comes from I just don't care. I don't have to come on your show and be decorated. I don't have to come and say I got these accomplishments. I don't have to, have like a cool background. I don't have to do that, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because like I was in prison and I had nothing and I had friends and people liked me just because I was me and I could talk and have a conversation and make them laugh and we could be cool. And when I got out of prison and I didn't have anything, like I was still with the same woman. She's still with me. I couldn't buy her diamonds and pearls and a private jet, you know what I'm saying? But she still loved me for me. And I think that that's my victory in life. I've been able just to understand who I am and I've been able to have people like me for me because even that's a prison right there. You can have all this stuff, but every person knows if somebody likes you for you or the lifestyle that you're providing for them. So if somebody be listening to this in a car and they can be next to a woman who just doesn't like them for them. They just like you for what you do or what you provide. You can have friends around you, and that's a prison. And you can have a luxurious prison. You can walk in your closet and you have Birkin bags and Gucci bags, and you say to yourself, like, man, if I didn't provide all these things, would this person really love me? Would this person really be next to me? If I really lost everything, would this person come and help me to rebuild? Would this person come and visit me in prison if I had to go to a federal prison? If everything was out the windows, would my kids still love me? You know
mm.
what I'm saying? I'm in a different world,
I
bro.
know
So
what
when you
you're
talk about
saying.
fear, when you talk about fear, I don't I don't have like so I tell you like this. I fear. I walked outside like 4 o'clock one morning, and there was a massive deer in my yard, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I'm from the city. I don't know about deer, right? So I fear stuff like that. Brothers in the hood ain't seeing a massive
Yeah,
deer.
no,
You know
I
what
get
I'm
it.
saying? So that
I'm
that
there.
make me feel uncomfortable. But anything other than that, man, I don't really fear.
Well, I know exactly what you mean. The reason I'm smiling so much is because what you're doing is dissolving the ego and feeding the soul. You found it. You're
Hmm.
authentic now, and that translates in everything that you do. And I think that's why people gravitate toward you now. And so, you know,
Yeah.
w- when it comes to business now, the things that you're trying to do, this brand, Commit 13, the investing part, the social philanthropy, the service, the connections, the partners, everything that you do. how do you incorporate, this authenticity into your leadership, into your management, into your relationships? And how are you able to balance all of these different initiatives while also still being authentic to the, the people who need you the most?
The first thing, just as simple as it sounds, just be yourself at all times. Don't try to be anything other than you are. Understand. I think the cornerstone of that is understanding my limitations. I think that is probably like the biggest thing, understanding where I'm smart at and where I'm not so smart, and also understanding the skill sets of the people around me who allow me to, I don't know, who just allow me to be myself within what we do, and understanding the talent around me. I think that from being in sports so much and being around football, that's a lot. That's basically been a benefit to me, understanding talent and putting talent where it needs to be. Um, the second part of that, the second part of that made me want to answer or think of just what I just said, just the people around me. What was the second part of your question? I
How do
lost it
you
in regards to me talk.
how do you balance all these initiatives while also being authentic to the people who you love the most?
How do I balance all these initiatives? One, I keep coming back, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's the team of people who you have. And
Mm,
you have to have a great team of people because they help me to balance. Like I'll give you a prime example. So on the one man I have to give the most credit to because he's just taught me a tremendous amount about business in general is Dr. Vladimir Zitzer. He's from California. I just called my man. Probably
okay.
has been just one of the most in regards to business, I've learned more from him than I've learned from anybody in the past 10 years. I have another guy, his name is Eric Ongaro. He's back from Youngstown. He helps to keep me grounded and just helps to talk about life, business, politics, and how it all intersects.
Mm,
I have another guy, and Eric has been a politician for the past 30 years, a football coach and a teacher. And so his perspective and why we're friends is totally different than all this other stuff. I have another guy, Mike Leach. Mike Leach was, CFO for Nationwide Insurance for 20 years. He just left a couple of years ago. Was in charge of managing billions of dollars, and just having him around. Another guy, Brian Inkrot, and his professional career and what he's accomplished. And so, how do I balance it all? I've been able to balance it from having great teammates. I'm
mm,
telling you, it really comes down to having great teammates, being in a situation where you don't have to do all the thinking, be in a situation where people respect your opinion, and they'll one, they respect your opinion. They care when you lean in with it, and they help to correct your thinking when it's flawed or it has some error. And that's how, I don't know. That's how all this stuff works, man. And
definitely.
I'm very fortunate of it.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, that's what got you started with rolling, and that's what's keeping you going now.
Yep.
This support system, this community, this mentorship. It's just a fascinating feat. It's just something that's so underrated. And to think that a lot of people think that they don't have people they can reach out to is it's very sad. I just hope for anyone listening to this, they do reach out to those people, or take a chance and reach out to someone new. And I think that could definitely make a big change in your life. Now, Maurice, we talked a lot today about just staying committed, what that means to you. And you've been so authentic yourself. So the last question I'll ask you on this show today, let's bring this home. What is your definition of a real leader?
Um, I think when you ask me that, the first thing is somebody who's clear on who they are. I would say that someone who understands that a leader is just the best servant of the people that they're in charge of, servicing their needs, giving great direction, um, allowing other voices that happen to be stronger than theirs within whatever mission that they're doing, allowing those voices to surface to the top and to feel that they've contributed. Someone who's a visionary in some capacity, someone who can let people know that while you spend your time with me in this life, I'm looking to improve it, looking to make it better, um, looking to be happy that you connected with me and follow my direction. Someone and just someone who has integrity,
Mm.
patience, someone who has drive, and most of all, commitment. Like they say, your determination determines your destiny. But when you say that, the track that has to sit on is commitment. Saying you can't, like I say, determination determines destiny, but the railroad track of that is commitment. Can you show commitment over a period of time? Can you show discipline over a period of time? Can you do that? Those are things that when you ask me what a leader is or who a leader is, or how would I define it? I don't have a clear statement, but those things that I just named, I think, are characteristics and traits, or things that I think about when I think of a leader.
Absolutely. I agree here. And we appreciate you coming on the Really Is podcast today, Maurice. For Maurice Clarett, I'm Kevin Edwards, asking you to go out there, be clear on who you are, stay committed, and always, folks, keep it real. Thanks, Maurice. Appreciate you.
Thank you.